Okay, it is 5:30, we've got a quorum, we'll go ahead and call the workshop session order. Mr. King.
Mayor, so today, to start off the meeting, we've got a fairly detailed proposal from the Youth Target Foundation related to the potential use of some park property that we control out on 141 Railroad Street Park, specifically Toyota Louisville Railroad Park. And this is an unsolicited proposal that we've been talking to them about on and off for a couple of months, I guess. The issue before you really tonight isn't so much in the details of the proposal as it is in the broad concept of the proposal, which is, do you or are you interested in the potential use of this park property for this type of purpose, and specifically through a concession proposal or a concession contract. If you're not interested in that type of thing, we probably need to be aware of that as soon as possible, and then we can save time. We have not gone into a lot of the details of this in terms of negotiating with the proponents. There's a lot of vetting that still needs to be done in terms of contract development and details and how everything would function out there, but that's all a lot of work that we don't want to do in the event that you're not interested in it to begin with. So the purpose tonight is really to gauge your interest and see if there are issues that you think are problematic or not. If you're gung-ho and you're interested in pursuing it further, then you can tell us that, and we'll get into more details with the proposers over the course of the next couple of months. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the folks that are going to be doing the presentation. And you know, if you want to introduce your team or...
I will do that.
Okay.
Well, my name is Shelley Enfinger, and I am the Vice President of the Youth Target Foundation, and I'd like to just take a minute and introduce you guys to everyone that we brought along with us. We come with quite a team because it takes a lot of people to put together our organization and our proposal. So I would like to introduce my mom and the president of our organization. This is Jeannie Allman, also known as Mama Jeannie. Some of you may know her. Mama, you can come on up. Mama has 7 children, and I am the favorite child. So, but
You always say that.
yes, I do.
Okay.
I just want everyone to know. We've been in Louisville area for 26, 27 years now.
Well, you're old, and you went to high school here, so.
Yes, I graduated from Louisville High School in '91, so I've been here for a very long time. So we're kind of excited to be in this area doing this proposal. So this is home to us. And Mom has 23 grandchildren, so all of those grandchildren are in this area. My daughter being the oldest and at Marcus High School. So we're excited about this opportunity. We brought David Prince, is a good friend of ours. Most of you know David Prince. He is the owner of Eagle Gun Range and in the industry with us. We work closely with him. Our other for-profit organization, Lipstick and Lead, where we help women be educated, moms be educated about the sport, and we work closely with his organization and his company. Tony Moore is our Director of Development for Youth Target Foundation. Tony is going to be helping us with the presentation tonight. And Tony will be doing all of our outdoor development, all of our land planning, so he will be working closely with the city and also EPA, OSHA, all of our necessary ordinances, the necessary evils really that we really have to work with. And then I'll kind of work my way around here. This is Hayward Cunningham, and he is here with Promatic. And Promatic works with, they do a lot of stuff for us, but they'll be doing all of our course design. They do all of our environmental planning, and they'll work closely with Tony to build out the course and do all of our land planning. They do all of our soil and work closely with the NSSF, which is the National Shooting Sports Foundation. They do a lot of course planning all over the nation. Really, they're the #1 organization in the world, really. And this is Casey Arwine, and he is with,
Barnes Co.
Construction. He's going to be doing all of our land clearing and cement and, you know, all of the stuff that I don't have to deal with, right, that Tony does. He's gonna come in and put together all of the course design and building the land. They'll all work together to help build it. So we brought them along in case you guys had any questions about how all that will work together. This is Sean McClellan. Sean McClellan works directly on our Youth Target Foundation team. He is the National Youth Director. He helps put together all the programs. And most of you have the proposal, but you've been able to read a little bit about the youth programs. And we'll get into that a little bit more because that's the lifeblood of our program. And Sean came on recently with us. He is one of the most developed people in the industry. Even though he's young, he's been around for a long time. He went to school full ride on a college scholarship in the shooting industry, and he was a sporting clay shooter at the time, and then they stole him and trained him to go to Beijing in the 2008 Olympics. So he can bring a lot to the sport and teach the kids a lot, and the kids love him, and he brings a lot of knowledge to that. We also have Brian Burrows as a guest. He is a World Cup medalist and just got back from Dubai in the World Championship, and he's our 2016 trap shooter Olympic hopeful. So he's just here training our kids this week, so we brought him along to the meeting. And we're lucky to have a lot of these world champions and Olympians working with our kids in our program. And we feel like this bringing these to the future of the kids is really important for the kids to be able to see what they can do. So I'm looking around the room, did I forget anybody else on our team? So with that, we'll kind of dive into the presentation and see if we can. At any time, if you have questions, feel free to stop me. There's a lot of information. We've been an organization since 2007 is when we founded it. And Mama has a story about why the Youth Target Foundation became a foundation. But basically, the gist of it was she called me on the phone one day and said, look, we need to find a way for these kids to be able to be involved in outdoor sports and not be turned away for any reason, whether it be financial or because they can't get there or they can't afford it or whatever it is. We need to find a way to get these kids out of the cement and into the outdoors. So that's how Youth Target Foundation became an organization. And we put together the Youth Target Foundation in 2007, and it was small for a while. We just kind of, were able to help some kids have some small shoots. And we quickly found that there was a need for us to be able to train kids in these sports, whether it be archery or competitive shotgun shooting. We found that there was a need for a facility in this area to train them. It was like bringing 100 kids to a public golf course on a Saturday morning and trying to teach them how to golf. And we realized that all of the public facilities in the Dallas-Fort Worth area were full. Shotgun shooting, competitive shotgun shooting is one of the fastest growing sports in the nation right now. And the kids are catching on just as quick or even quicker. When we go into the schools, we find that if you don't play basketball, football, or baseball in Texas, when you get up to the high school level, there's really not a lot for you. So when we present this sport to the parents, and we say to them, if you pay for this sport, your kids will play. There's no bench. The boys and girls play together, and if they sign up their kids, they're going to play. It's very popular. It is the safest sport in high school sports today. We have an extremely high level of responsibility, leadership, training for these kids. And there's a lot of college opportunity out there for them that they don't even know about. Several college scholarships went unused last year, and it's our mission to try to get to these kids and show them the opportunities that they have. We believe by building this academy, we can bring in not only the scholarships, but the opportunity to get more kids to reach their potential in this sport and several other sports, just really becoming better kids and lots of leadership responsibility. So this is one of our goals here. Also, reaching out to the community and giving the community more opportunity and more place to be together as a family. This is a sport. This is not a stop and drop sport. You can't drop your kid off here and come back and pick them up in 2 hours. There's been lots and lots of studies done about shooting sports and archery where we know that you have to spend time with your kids. I don't know how many of you are involved in Boy Scouts or any other outdoor activities, but it is a very family-intensive situation. So whether we do a lot of volunteer work for kiddos that don't have, like the Big Brothers Big Sisters, Big Boy Scouts, where kiddos that don't have the parents involved, but we also offer that opportunity for them. So that's one of the things that we offer at the Academy. We've just kind of outlined how how we will have our structure built, and
Tim's taken over. Tim has taken over the room. Sorry.
it's okay. So our structure, you guys all have this in your presentation here, and so
It's the NSA.
we have somebody taking over our PowerPoint, but it's totally fine. So we've outlined the structure for you. Yes, I did print it out for you, just in case anyone took over our room like that. Oh, look, we're back. So this is gonna be our structure set up. We're on page 4. So we have outlined in here how our structure will be set up with our employees. You can go through all that. And if you want to flip through, does everybody here at the table have one of these? If you want to flip through, you'll see. Oh, look, there we go.
Very quick.
Moving into the business overview. These are some of our business goals. Building a state-of-the-art public facility that is designed for the youth education. This will not be a facility that is designed to be a gun range that you would see normally for a public facility. So we're going to talk about that in the presentation, and I'll let you guys ask questions. And then we'll also talk about supporting the youth teams, the ones that we already have and the ones that we're looking to build. And then also, again, we talk about the community, bringing in people into the city of Louisville. Lots and lots and lots of sports tourism. This is a sport where people come and they stay for the competitions for long periods of time. So we're going to talk about the communities. Okay. Let's roll before he takes over again. So we have lots of numbers in here that we'll talk about, but we're looking at the revenues at the end of the first year, almost $8 million. And approaching 18 million, 18.5 at the end of 3 years. When we get into the experience that we have years and years and years of experience in this industry. So that's where these numbers are true to what we do. This has been known for a long time to be an elitist sport. One of the things that we want to do is to be able to bring this sport to the general public. So our prices are even going to be more. I would say lower than your general public facilities that you would see, but we're still, as you can see, our revenue is still going to be generous. Increased sports tourism in our partner city by 70,000 people and over 65 million in the first year. So we are, our plan is that we bring in, when we have our competitions, we would like to see our shotgun competitions. We will be bringing in an Olympic training center, and then also the archery, which will be, when we have those competitions, they are for several days. People will have to come in from all over the nation, and they stay for several days. So there'll be a lot of that. So moving on to our team, go ahead. Our management team, Mom and I, Mama Jeannie is the president and the program director. She's been in this industry for a long, long, long time. Really, there is no more influential woman in this industry than Mama Jeannie. So people come from all over to learn from her, to hear what she has to say, and then also she's the director of education, and then also her range management experience is extensive. What I do is mostly the business, the behind the scenes. She dreams it up, and then I have to make it happen. So we have a lot going on with that part of the team. I have a lot of experience in nonprofits. I ran my own nonprofit for 10 years prior to this. So, but we do a lot of marketing to the youth and a lot of marketing to the parents. We believe that one of our unique things that we have in this industry is we market to the moms a lot. We feel like it's honestly is the mom who decides if there is a firearm in the home. We believe that it's the mom who decides if if the kid comes to practice or not, if the child is involved in this sport for a long period of time, and how committed they are to any sport, whether it be baseball, basketball, football. I know that in my home, it's really ultimately me who decides where and how committed the kid is, because my husband's at work, and if the kid's gonna get to practice, then I have to be the one to commit to that. So we do mom clinics, and we know that it can be a little bit different for the mom in this sport, because usually it's a male-dominated sport. So we do a lot of education for the moms. And once those moms learn, boy, they are off and running, and they feel comfortable, and they realize what's happening in the sport, and they take over. It's just like teaching mom about hockey or lacrosse or anything else. So once they learn, they're good to go. So this is just more information about Mama's resume. You guys have all that information in your packet. You can read through it. Mom's done everything from competing to training women, kids, people all over the world. And then my background mostly is in the marketing department. I've also learned to teach. I've got both my parents on both sides are champions, grandparents on both sides are champions. My brother's a world champion. So, and then my daughter picked up that shotgun, and I was like, no, put it down, because I knew what I was in for. But she is well on her way. So, this is information about Sean, which we've already talked about. He's won lots and lots and lots, and then also obviously been to Beijing, which is as high as it gets to get to be able to represent our country. So it's fun for the kids to get to be able to see that they could someday be being able to have that opportunity to go to the Olympics too. So, and he gets to travel all over and bring the kids in, and the kids will be able to come to the academy and be able to see the Olympians, and then have the Olympic Training Center here in North Texas to train at. These are some of the unique and exclusive programs. We've already kind of touched on some of these. The high school teams are something that's coming on strong in Texas in the last 2 years. Our first year, we had one team. Marcus High School was the first team in Texas. By the second year, we had grown 900%. This year, I know it says another 900% in your presentation, but we have way past that already. We're blown past that. We're looking at another 2,000% growth this year. So, and we are containing it until the facility is built. So we could blow past that easy. The sport is catching on so fast. We are about where golf was about 15 years ago when Tiger came on and all the youth took off in that sport. Because it's so exciting what's happening that these kids have an opportunity to do a sport, go to college on a sport, and have this opportunity to move forward. And so we offer Breaking Basics. The Breaking Basics class gives them an opportunity to try the sport a little before they want to sign up for the class, before they want to come and do it. The Breaking Basics is what we'll be bringing all these kids in that participate in the outdoor education class. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that high school program that Dallas Safari Club has put together. They go into the high schools and they try all sorts of different outdoor education. They go hiking and kayaking, and they do archery, and they do shotgun. We'll be busing them into the facility and letting them try this. So it's kind of a first shot experience. The Breaking Basics is like where your child wants to try to play the guitar. I don't know about you guys, but I have a guitar in the closet that my child wanted to play the guitar, and it's sitting in the closet. Well, this gives them an opportunity to try this sport, because it can be somewhat costly to buy all the equipment and all that. So we give them the opportunity to try the sport. They don't have to have anything. They just show up. They get to try the sport a little bit before they decide if it's something that they want to do. So that's our Breaking Basics class. They have to have safety prior to the class, and then they get to try the sport. We also do a ton of parent volunteer training, and then we all the way up to our pro clinics where they get to go with the Olympians, Team USA, so on and so forth. We do start them when they're little. We have the younger programs. We start them at 6th grade is the youngest that we start them in the shotgun sports. The archery gets to start a little bit smaller than that. So that's kind of where we start in age groups. Did we have any questions about our programs that we were offering? Okay, let's move on. One of the things that we're doing to pull in the nation is our interactive website. So one of the things about the shotgun industry is that there is information everywhere. There's not a main portal. So one of the things that UTarget Foundation is doing is we're building an educational media outlet. Well, we will have a live TV channel that is building that put all of our information in there. So if kids want information, parents want information about coaching, programs, calendars, where can my kids go? How does my kid become an Olympian? So this is where they'll go to find out that information. How does my kid get memberships for teams and athletes? How does my kid get insurance, background checks? All that stuff will be in one place for them. So that if a mom's trying to figure out, her kid says, I'd like to go to college and be on a competitive shotgun team. Okay, a mom has no clue where to look for that. You don't even know where to start looking for that. So this is how they do that. They can get on our website and they can live chat. There's live TV channels. There's all sorts of stuff. And this facility will be so state-of-the-art that the kids can come and train here, and they'll be able to upload information back into the website, into their personal stuff, and be able to watch themselves train on the facility with coaches, and then be able to, into their personal site, and then be able to, so they'll have like their own little page. So this is gonna be state-of-the-art information pulling into this interactive website. Okay. Again, safety, we really, our number one situation. I don't know, some people have even come up to me and said they know Mama Jeannie and they know that safety will be the number one thing. Mr. Gilmore came up and said he'd already worked with
you can throw me
her.
under that bus.
Yes, I was gonna throw you under that bus. But safety, if you've ever met Mama Jeannie, you know that safety is our number one concern with these kids. And we tell these kids from the beginning in this program, if you are not entitled to this program. If you want to be in this program, you must rise up. You have to be a bigger leader. You have to have more responsibility. Because of what we do, people are watching, and you must be a little bit better. So we do hold them to a little bit higher standard. They have to go through 8 hours of safety class before they ever reach the range. All the safety classes are held at the schools before they even come to the facility. We will be holding safety classes at the academy once we build the academy. And now that we have our new offices in Louisville, we'll be holding our safety classes there. All the safety classes are held without anything so that they can have them in the schools and stuff like that. No live ammunition, no live firearms. But safety is our number one concern, because if the kids are taught that and they are held to that high standard all the time, they live up to it. This is a student-driven program. Again, we talked about this being an academy. This is not a gun range. This is a facility that is built and designed to be a learning academy, like a university, where they go there to learn. So there will not be adult competitions there. There will be youth competitions held there, but not adult competitions. We're gonna leave that to the gun ranges. And this is designed around learning. Now, adults can come there and learn, kids can come there and learn, families can come there and learn, but we'll be training thousands of youth, creating lifelong shooters there, lifelong conservationists. So this is the Olympic Training Center. Our goal is to turn clay shooting into a spectator sport. They did it with golf. We're certain we can do it with clay target shooting. So we are designing, this is what their job is, to design this center so that it is completely designed around education. All the front line will have cameras that come back into the facility. Everything is designed specifically for that. So this will be one of the only facilities in the nation that is eco-friendly. Everything will be green, lots of solar. We will have the nation's only ADA compliant lit sporting clay course. The only other one that we know of is in Germany. It will be the world's only lit and ADA compliant. There is an ADA compliant course in Germany, but it's not lit. So we will be having the fiber optics and cameras will be out for filming so that parents can sit in the clubhouse and watch stuff going on. And then we have the indoor and outdoor training facilities. We'll be having indoor simulator stuff so the kids will be able to train indoors and outdoors. The indoor facilities will have classrooms, amphitheaters, the dry fire training room, and that's the shotgun simulator stuff we talked about. We'll be able to have indoor archery and outdoor archery. The media room, educational media library, well, the kids will be able to watch all the stuff going on. One-on-one instructional coaching videos, they can go in and watch what was happening outside. We'll have a filming in a green room so that we can film all the coaches and the kids, so we have that live coaching channel going on for the kids nationwide. Also a cafe, a pro shop, and then the 40,000 square foot clubhouse. This is a blueprint, somewhat, of the clubhouse. And it will be 2-story, and then the outside will have a viewing deck of the Olympic Training Center and the track and skeet fields in the front line. This is our little offices. It's in Louisville right now. We love it. It's little, but it holds us right now. So our corporate headquarters is just right off 121. It's about 2 blocks from the proposed site. Our goal would be that we would be able to stay there and be satellite until the facility would be ready to roll. Our outdoor facilities. Right now we have proposed, and this could change once we get out to the land. It's got a lot of trees on it right now, so we would have to see. 9 track and ski overlays, 4 6-station sporting clay courses, which would also overlay into 12 courses. 3 5-stands, beginner teaching fields. And what a beginner teaching field is just a track that the target goes straight out. So that's kind of where we start the kiddos at. 8 Olympic training fields, 4 track and 4 skeet. You must have 4 to make it an Olympic training center of each, so you can hold competitions there. Large accessible shooting stands, the 3 large pavilion outdoor classrooms. So there'll be 1 for fishing, 1 for archery, and 1 for the shotgun, which can be overlaid and changed and used for whatever we need. Grandstands, again, will be making this a spectator sport for lots of parents. We'll also be able to have anything else that we need out there for the city. They'll be very versatile for any sort of competition, anything that we need out there. I know that at the National Shooting Complex in San Antonio, they have cross-country meets, they have mud runs, they have all sorts of stuff out there. Educational filming equipment, the 3D archery range, fly fishing, and field trial dog training. So that's our goal right now. This is our scale of the facility right now. We have 3 Olympic bunkers here, and we have 1 in the middle right in front of the clubhouse that would be for the show. We have a sporting clay area back in here, and the lighted ADA compliant up near 121. And then we have parking configured for 600 plus cars. Now, that would be for a large event, obviously. We would keep the parking around the clubhouse unless we had a large event. A couple of years ago at Elm Fork Shooting Sports down in Dallas, where we had done several events and have some of our teams practicing right now, we held an event called the Outdoor Expo that Youth Target Foundation put on. And we brought in every industry. We actually brought in 53 different industries. There was 60 different events for the kids to do. And everything from dogs, mountain biking, archery, fitness, mountain climbing. We had fishing, we had scuba diving, we had everything you could think of. Shotgun shooting, everything you can think of for the kids to do outside. And we had it all laid out there. Our goal would be eventually to be able to hold those outdoor expos at this facility too. So that's like a once a year, and it brings in kids and shows them everything they can do outside. And that's when we would need all that parking, is those events. We brought in 5,000 kids for one day event. So we would definitely need all that parking for that. The pavilions are 60 by 20, and the clubhouse layout is 40,000 square feet. Again, this design is subject to change upon land inspection. Those are, we have to get in and let Casey dig out the course and then let our guys do their magic. But again, we have the best in the industry. There's nobody better at doing what we do. That we have the best team. The Olympic Training Center is passionate to our heart. The next closest one we have in Texas is Kerrville, Texas. Mom and I drove up to Colorado Springs to the International Nationals last year, and there was not one Texas representative there. And Mom and I looked at each other and said, what is wrong with this picture? We are certain that there is a child in Texas that can represent us. No offense, Brian, I know that you're really gonna do some good representation from California, but we're certain that there's a child in Texas that can represent us in the international nationals, and we need to find that child, and they have to have a place to train. So we're passionate about bringing an Olympic training center to Texas because we know that there is some kids out here that can do us some justice in that. The Olympic Training Center will bring an extreme amount of funding to our facility, not only in the daily training. Sean and Brian can attest to how much training it actually takes to get to that level, but also in the competitions that we can bring. Brian just got back from a selection match where several Olympic hopefuls went out to Arizona, and they were there for 2 weeks shooting a lot. And so the athletes come in and they shoot, they come in for 2 weeks and they shoot to compete for that selection match. So an Olympic Training Center brings in a lot of sports tourism money. We know that, and not only are the athletes there all summer training, but they're there, preparing for that selection match. So we know that that is gonna bring in a lot of training. Plus we'll be able to hold camps all summer preparing the kids for those sports. It also is, it is going to be our spectator sport draw. So we're really excited about adding this in. There's just nowhere, Kerrville is kind of in the middle of nowhere, and to have it 15 minutes from a major airport is a huge draw. So I'm really excited about the Olympic Training Center. These are just some renderings of kind of what we're looking at. These are not exact renderings of what we would be looking at, but this is kind of our treat area, and then what a track and ski field looks like. This was up at Youth Nationals up at Sparta, Illinois. This is kind of what the front line looks like in grandstands. These are some examples of sporting clay courses. Kids shooting archery out on the course. This is actually Coach and our kids down at Nationals, and some of the ideas of our indoor training center. Our archery will be built through our grants and programs funded through the federal excise tax. We are working with a group from the director of the Archery Shooters Association. We also work with archery in schools, and they'll be coming in to help build all of that program. So there will be an outside program coming in to help us build the archery courses. We will have a 3D course and a competitive course. Our environmental stewardship plan is our comprehensive plan that is implemented to protect us prior to, during, and after our building of the facility. And this helps to make sure that our organization is mindful of the land and the environment. And it helps us to make sure that we are meeting our goals and making sure that Tony is in charge of all of our plan, working with the team to make sure that the course is built. We are following this plan to make sure that the course is built a certain way so that the environment is protected, and that we are building the course so that the lead is contained in a certain area so we can reclaim the lead, and then making sure that everything is contained, that all the shot fall is contained in a certain area. We're building the course in a certain way so that that is in a, in a small area. And our professionals consult together to do the range design, the lead reclamation, the restoration, and the land remediation, and we can kind of talk through. You also have a copy of that. It's like 386 pages. So it's extensive. This is the red area that you see is where the actual shot fall will be. And so we can kind of talk about, if you guys have any questions about that, we have a specialist, Kurt Malden, who will do all of our reclamation. we don't do reclamation for several years. We don't actually pick the lead up for several years. But he will come in and help them design prior to, so that they know exactly where everything will be when they do that. He's part of the design team. This is more information on Kurt Malden. He has special equipment so that we can design the course, so we can cut out minimal trees when we design the course. He's one of the only ones in the country that has the equipment to reclaim the lead through trees. This is another company that we consulted with about that. They actually have a video online that you can watch on how they reclaim lead at shooting ranges. And so that's just more information for you, consulting with OSHA, the health and safety and regulatory compliances. So we've done extensive research and information, and we have the best in the industry doing all that for us. This is information about the jobs that we will be bringing to Texas, North Texas. This will be in phase 1, what we'll be bringing in once we open the facility. So we just, we kind of, but this is when the events, this is some of the information about the events. We will be holding charity and corporate events during the day. This will be part of the funding that we bring in so we can have the kids programs. And then we have numbers on the public usage, and then the youth usage is on the other page. So this is just, what you're seeing here is just the charity events on the sporting clay. And that's what your charges are. So the reason that these prices are a little bit higher than what you would see just the general public is because they get golf carts and they get, the usage of the pavilion and stuff like that, because they'll bring in a charity event, and the corporate event is a little bit higher. So that's what these numbers are. Corporate event, they get ammo, they get stuff like that in their package. So that's why those prices vary a little bit when they come in. They get instructors, they get ammo, they get the whole package when they come in as a corporate package. These are public use numbers. So this will be just if they're coming in to shoot 100 targets. These numbers are based on your average numbers in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. This is public use. These are actually well below the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but we want to keep our numbers a tad bit lower because we're the nonprofit and we're an academy. We want people to be able to come here with their kids and shoot. So we want this to be a little bit more affordable situation. This is the information about our youth teams. This was just a normal morning at one of the ranges, organizing 200 plus kids. We have a 1 to 5 volunteer ratio. So with every 5 kids, we must have 1 parent. And so we have to keep those parents involved. Call us crazy, but when we have 5 kids on a golf cart, we must have a parent with us. So we have to keep the parents there. So we have a lot of parents and a lot of kids. This is our mission for the Youth Target Foundation, and you guys can read through this, but it's very similar to the Academy mission. This talks again about our growth that we've experienced this year in the area, and so you guys can read through these numbers. We have become the UIL basically of shotgun sports. So the kids can letter in shotgun sports, and they can actually get a varsity letter in shotgun sports. So they can be at their school, and like they do in lacrosse or hockey, they can actually do that now too. So again, with the emphasis in the college, we have now partnered with several collegiate programs and are building those in the area. We have lots of coaching training. This is one area that we have found that has been lack of in our 4-H programs, in our other programs that we're working on, is the coaching programs. So we, as Youth Target Foundation, we are an organization that brings all the organizations together. We accept 4-H, we accept Boy Scouts of America, we accept all the programs together and give them funding. So we want them all to come shoot there. So one of the things we've noticed though is there's a huge lack of coaching. So that's one thing we'll do at the academy is offer those programs. So this is more information about the coaching. And again, more information about our clinics and trainings that we have. So we've already kind of talked about that. Our youth competitions. This gets into where we are talking a little bit about when we are bringing in more of that sports tourism money is when we have our regional, we have, right now we're holding 14 shoots a year, local, regional, and state. Next year, we're looking at adding more depending on what we do with the academy. Last year, we spent a little over $85,000 going to other facilities, paying the other facilities to hold our shoots. So we're really wanting to bring that revenue back to us. If we have our own facility, we'd be able to bring that revenue in. Now, those other facilities were Fort Worth, Decatur, other cities that we branched out to, San Antonio, and we took several. We went our first year at a state, we had 50 kids, and then last year we took 650 entries down to San Antonio. So 650 kids that we took in buses and drove them down to San Antonio, and with each kid comes 2.8 people with them. So took a lot of people down to San Antonio. We'd like them to stay in this area, and then they all would come here. These are numbers on the youth teams, and what we're looking at in this, and this is where they pay, for the 50 targets, they pay $5 a round, so that's where you're getting, a round is 25 targets. So this is why you're looking at $10, 50 targets, $10. And that's where that pricing comes in. So the kids will have a highly discounted rate, the youth teams will. These are our current teams in the area. And in Texas right now. These kids are competing against each other. They have their peer shoots that they do. We have 3 shoots in the next month that they will compete. 1 in track, 1 in ski, and 1 in sporting clay. So we have Marcus and all sorts of stuff. These are our potential teams for 2014. We're working rapidly to get these teams set up. And these are all student-driven teams. So the kids come to us, say, I want a team at my school. We say, okay, here's what you do. You need to call and get a meeting set up with your principal. You need 10 kids. And they have to get 10 kids signed up on their list. And they have to get their parents to get us a meeting. And then we get a meeting with the principal. We go meet with the principal. And then they have to put up signs and get the whole team built. And they call us back and say, okay, I'm ready. We're ready for our meeting. And then we go into the meeting with them. And they call us back and say, what do I need to do now? And we say, okay, now we're going to send you a sign. You need to market the team. And we keep putting it back on their plate. And the kids will do this. They grow the programs. They've done all of this. And we just are their support staff. We just go and we keep telling them, okay, now this is what you do. And the kids will build the program. So these are the schools that we're looking at. We get into a little bit of trouble with schools like South Lake and Allen, and because they have 120, 140, 180 kids when they call us back. We're like, no, it's 10. So we're working through it with them because they're going to have freshmen, sophomore, junior, and senior teams instead of 150 kids on their team. So, all right. Youth competitions, we talked about this a little bit. Our nationals, we're looking at a little bit over 20,000 athletes next year. So the entire year, we're looking at about 76,000 athletes coming in 1 year for all of our shoots. Our local shoots, these are all the numbers for our local shoots, and then the visitors on top of that. You have to remember, we make this a family affair. When we went down to San Antonio, we took all 5 of us for the week. Stayed down at the Hyatt Hill Country, stayed for the week. We just made it a family affair. So we're looking for people to come up to Louisville, stay for the week. There's lots of stuff to do here. And so we would then, get with the sports tourism groups in this area and say, here's what you can do, because mom or dad comes to the range, brother and sister, they shoot 1 or 2 rounds, and then they have the whole day to hang out in the city. And then they got to come back in the evening for the shoot-off. And so they got to stay around here in the area and spend the money. So there's got to be stuff here for them to do. There will be lots of stuff for them to do at the academy. They can do archery, and they can go fishing, and they can go over to the skate park right down the road. So there'll be lots of stuff for them to do right here. And there's lots of restaurants, and a city this size can host that. So this is the numbers that we've ran for the sports tourism. We got these numbers off the 2012 National Association of Sports Commission. We actually went a little tad bit low on the 165 per day. But the shooters, this is a sport that you have to have the money to do it. This is lacrosse or hockey or golf. So by the time they get to shotgun shooting, they're ready to roll. Okay. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Outdoor Education is one of our partners. We work with them closely to get to the kids in the schools. So they've already been in the schools. They have average of 100 students per school. They have 111 kids in the North Texas school, 111 schools in the North Texas schools. And they participate, they will bus them in, they'll participate in a full day of archery, clay target shooting, fly fishing. They'll include lunch, they'll pay us, and then they'll bus back out. We're looking at exposing over 100,000 kids in 1 year to the outdoor sports. This is a great program because if your kid doesn't know what they want to do, and it really boosts their self-esteem when they do shoot archery or they start to break a clay target and they're not good at anything and they leave going, hey, maybe that's a good sport for me. We get a ton of kids in the program from this program. So we love partnering with this program. We do it with Coppell. We've been doing it for years. We pull in a ton of kids from this program. Kids that don't do anything, and now they have a sport. So this is a great program for us. It brings in a lot of revenue for us. It's a great program for the schools. It gets kids in the schools that aren't doing anything. Now they have a sport. Now they let her in a sport. And now they're doing archery or clay target shooting, fly fishing. They've got something. Some colleges even have bass fishing programs now. We get our funding from lots of different areas. And one of the things that our marketing team has done is really stepped outside of the industry. Instead of tapping out the shotgun industry, we step outside of the industry a lot. So we do. We have a lot of grants coming in from Midway USA, which is one of our largest funders. We'll be bringing in a little bit over $2 million in the last 2 years from them. We have local, state, and federal grants. We will be part of the Texas Parks and Wildlife grant this year. And then we have several private donors that will come in on our capital campaign. And then we have other grants. We'll be doing an ADA grant with a local donor here in Texas to build our ADA course. These are some of the proposals that we have for the city as far as the revenue coming back, the lease that we've kind of talked about. This is something that we'll talk about later in negotiation. This is just our first initial proposal as far as our lease. We've kind of talked about a little bit, and we've talked about it with some of the city managers. So our project cost, our layout, we'll do it in 3 phases. Our first phase will be the grading, land prep, our sporting clay course, and our 5 stand. And then our phase 2 will bring in the Olympic Training Center, the front line, the pavilions. And then our phase 3 is when we will build our barn and bring in the archery and the clubhouse. These are just all of our partners and stuff like that. And so, questions? I know you have
Questions,
questions.
council?
Well, I would say the only concern that I've heard at all is the lead remediation. And you guys know that's gonna be the big issue there with the Elm Fort coming right down there, but you've got experience with that, so I'm going to assume that if we continue down this path, staff and you can figure out what our exposure is and what the potential is for the watershed.
Yeah, we won't be shooting anywhere near the water. And
I
then
noticed that.
They will also be, building out as much as we can. Really, this is a great piece of land because of the 2. Oh, well, Tony, I'll let you talk about that.
And maybe Hayward might have one out. As
Yeah,
to,
we put on that, with the 2 water basins that are already catching all the water.
well, with lead doesn't move once it hits the ground. So once it hits the ground, as long as we keep it out of the direct flow of water, it can be reclaimed. And then in our design, that's what's most important in our design, is to design this place where all shot can be reclaimed. We'll be working with, again, the NSSF, along with Tony and helping us get that design. We'll put together a proper lead management program for the facility, and we'll sustain that year after year.
It's also a source of revenue as well.
It is.
Revenue
It is. When we reclaim the lead, it'll be a source of revenue.
Any further questions on?
I like it.
Any questions?
Keep it simple. I mean, that's the only issue that I would have at all, is to take a look at that. I've talked a little bit with some of our park staff. They don't seem to have any issues with it conflicting with our existing facilities.
Well, I mean, the NSSF has all the information, and it's available to any of us. I have a direct relationship with NSSF. We work with them worldwide or nationwide on lots of projects. We've resourced the best in the business to actually do the reclamation. Everybody involved in this is the best there is.
Sounds like a great program. May I ask any other questions? This time?
Oh, you will see some shot screens on your design, in your facility design, that we'll be putting up for safety purposes, berms and shot screens, so that nothing will travel out, just for safety purposes, in addition to being distance and stuff like that.
That's relatively
It also helps with
But
noise.
if you
Just
notice,
like you addressed the noise
Yeah.
concern, 'cause that's coming
Yeah.
a little bit.
if you notice on the design, the
Preliminary
layout
design.
now, none of that is actually sized yet. None of it will be sized until the design is on, we get it, make the proper designs, then we can decide what size berms and shot screens will be needed.
The noise, we will bring in even the professionals even to make sure, but we've designed the facility to even cushion more noise than we can. We put it up as close to 121, which our office building happens to be on 121, it's a little tad bit noisy. But we've designed it even to be as close to that as we can. And then our only concern would be, there is some residents in the mobile home park, and we will keep as many trees to buffer along that one side. But again, shotguns are the quietest of all the firearms.
And I do believe the closest firing line to that mobile home park is still gonna be over 500 feet. which
And
is
all the shot is going away
Away from them.
Away from it.
And there'll be trees and then berms also to help with the noise. And we will also be doing noise tests so that doesn't, so that we make sure that that stays under control. But it will be minimal.
Merit Professionals just came in, our stormwater folks.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We do have our yes, Clint Benson from Merit Professionals, he's our stormwater professional. He's on a job and came in a little bit. But he will be doing all our stormwater and SWIP, did I say that right?
We're gonna be helping protect your watershed.
Yes. SWIP. And he's our professional, he's our water professional. To make sure that the water all moves where it's supposed to and that it's protecting.
And I don't mean to back up, but I want to add a little something to what Shelley was speaking of earlier about the youth and the kids drive this program themselves. I live in Arkansas. In Arkansas, the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission has actually took on kind of leadership of this program because the youth were demanding. And once it started in Arkansas 6 years ago, it started with 250 kids the first year. The next year it went to 1,800. The next year it went to 4,000. Right now, we're right around 8,500 to 9,000 kids registered shooting targets out of schools. And where I live in a little small town called Magnolia. We just introduced it in our local school 2 years ago. We put the sign-up sheet out on a Wednesday afternoon. By Friday, there was 67 kids signed up. So, and like I say, Arkansas doesn't even have what these people, what they're trying to bring here. I mean, it's just, the Game and Fish is trying to kind of oversee the program. And it's so big that they're really, they don't know what to do at this point. It's still growing. So it's a phenomenal program. And this is a phenomenal location for us.
We are gonna invite the Arkansas kids, though, to come to our shoots.
You bet.
So they'll be coming in to spend their money here.
It's grown so fast there. And there's, you know, the kids are out working and raising their own money because there's no programs like such as this to help fund it at all.
Any more questions?
I don't think
These
so.
guys can answer any questions you have about environmental issues.
Got everybody.
You guys all have our,
Would this be economic development when we were talking about the percentages and stuff?
So, you're talking about as far as the
Concessions and all that stuff?
concession discussion possible?
We'll see what they bring forward.
Now, there's a lot of details there now, so we just need to look at it, but it looks like a good program.
sure.
Just a lot of stuff we need to discuss with staff on some of the issues that we have.
You guys all have our contact information.
Right.
And so if you have environmental questions or anything, we can get those to you. And but thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for coming.
We're very excited
Good
about
presentation. Good
being here.
presentation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the credentials that you bring to the table.
Thank
I
you.
was impressed when I reviewed the material.
Give staff anything right now? No, I won't give it a look where we can talk about, see if we can talk
Yeah, I
about the
think at this
executive
stage, unless you had
sessions
any
and stuff.
major concerns right now, you can just send us questions by email and we'll move forward with whatever.
What I'd like to talk about
additional
is like
discussions
the
we
concessions and stuff, and remediation and stuff like that. Okay. Thank you again for coming. Thank all of you for coming. Praise and congratulations to you gentlemen for the fine work that y'all do and the honors you've achieved and everything else. Glad to have you here and glad to have you come back. Hope we can make this program work. Okay? Thank y'all very much for coming. Appreciate it. If y'all want to leave now, you can, because we're going to do our regular stuff now if you want to, but if you don't, you're more than welcome to stay.
It's fascinating.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming too. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
We have a couple of extra copies if you'd like us to leave them.
Leave with
Yeah.
the city manager there behind, or Bob. Can you do it? I just don't like the concession stuff, percentages and remediation and stuff like he was talking about. Ways to remedy that out. Huh?
Nobody had a major.
Oh, no, I didn't hear anybody say anything, problem about saying no, no.
It's just dotting i's and crossing
Yeah,
t's.
yeah. But I wanted to see if we could talk about some of that in executive session. I would think that would be economic development.
I'm not clear. Concessionaire agreement, or was it-
Well, that's what I'm wondering. How would you talk about it?
Concessionaire, but it's also,
Whatever we can get in the back.
Thank you. And I can go over some of that with you too. Okay, anybody got anything else before we get started on the regular session? Okay. Item 1. Everybody knows that Mr. Backus, if you didn't bring your dollar, he's got your dollar. $2.
$2. They will take 20
She
soon, remember?
warned us 3 times.
Item 2.
You can test it.
On this one, I've got to bring up the deal about underground utilities. Does that have anything to do with this here?
these are our utilities, so it's primarily water and sewer, and the costs associated with these, that are our costs, are for the betterments. The state will pay for the relocation of existing facilities. If you want to upgrade a pipe from 12-inch to 24-inch for some reason, they'll only pay for the 12-inch piece of it. And And we've got several of these locations, especially as it relates to the Eagle Point area, that we're trying to build some infrastructure in there for possible future development of that area, so that's where a lot of this comes into play.
That's all I have.
Item 3,
If y'all have noticed, they're already out there working on all this. Trees are coming down and
Roads are
you can see
getting
the new right of way.
On item 3?
35.
On 35,
I
yeah.
think they just started that today,
It was last Wednesday.
was it?
Yeah. They started about
You're
when the
talking about the big tree
groundbreaking was.
thing. I'm talking about the big tree thing.
Oh, no. Just where they started grading it. They took the little ones down.
Yeah, the big tree things were out there today. Did you see them? Those
Yeah.
huge trucks right there.
Yeah.
Item 4,
I just have a question for the city manager on item 4. In the backup material, they mentioned the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulations. On this item, is that considered a third party? Would they be considered a third party overseeing this or doing the inspections and
Yeah, they're a regulatory agency.
review?
They're a regulatory agency, and so they have a role in inspecting improvements. I'm not gonna tell you that they're gonna come out and inspect literally everything, but generally they'll come out and perform some kind of review of what you built and tell you whether you built it the way you said you were gonna build it. But they're not the only one, that's just the Texas one, and then you also have the federal agencies that represent the ADA Act and their responsibilities for making sure things are done properly. So we deal with a hodgepodge of laws and regulatory bodies in designing this type of thing. So Duncan Sims' objective will be to comply with all of them.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
item 5,
Which fields are these? Is it to get sidewalks more into the middle?
They're out here, they're out at Lake Park.
Oh, in Lake Park, sorry, one more up.
And it's all of the, there's no walkways to any of the soccer fields out at
Right.
Lake Park.
Okay, so we're gonna,
And so turf renovation has already been done to 4 of the fields. So this would include turf renovation to the remaining 4, and then accessible walkways to all 8 of the fields.
And parking, isn't that involved as well?
And some additional parking up on the north end and parking for softball fields, the adult softball fields 9 and 10, if you've been up there. It's really undersized, you can't get emergency vehicles through there. If you get a full-size pickup, you can't hardly drive it through when you get 4 teams up there.
thank you.
item 6, item 7,
Now, the figure in item 7, is that a different figure than what the city manager is currently allowed to do at his discretion?
Which figure are you talking about?
If we talk about, let's go to the back material, I think it's 7.2.
50,000 number?
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually the number that we are required under state law to go to council with. Anything above 50,000.
Didn't we?
Actually, you're required to bid it, is what you're required to do after above 50,000.
But at some point, weren't you given the authority to exceed that number without going to council?
I think our purchasing policy adheres to that same number.
It's actually in
Is it the same number?
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's actually in the purchasing policy that interlocals and cooperative purchases and things like that, that city council signed off on, as long as it's in the budget for this year that's already been approved, then it does not have to go back to city council for approval.
Think about it. There's something that's already in the budget and approved, like vehicle purchases, for example.
Okay.
We buy vehicles often in excess of 50,000, you might not see it.
Oh, okay.
Maintenance contracts, things like that.
All right. All right, then I guess I was confused. Okay, thank you.
Is that all?
Yes, sir.
Item 8. Item 9. Item 10. Where you going?
Claude had some information about this, is RTC roofing.
Yeah, the letter that you had in your backup from Commissioner Eads, he's on the bylaws committee, and they're looking at the way that they allocate 43 seats, basically, is what they have on the RTC right now. And I think there's 26 of them for the cities, and then the rest of the 17 are allocated in the counties and various other agencies like DCTA or DART and the T, et cetera. So when they, this all kind of dates back to 1990 and beyond and before that, but primarily 1990 when Louisville was designated as a urbanized area. And at the time, we were an urbanized area and Denton was an urbanized area. And obviously, the Dallas Fort Worth area was urbanized. And what that designation does, because the COG is grandfathered that designation, today, we're actually combined with Denton. So it's a Denton/Louisville urbanized area, but they grandfathered the old urbanized areas because at that time, we had the right to name our own MPO or become our own MPO. We opted not to, and we opted to designate the COG as our MPO. So we're still kind of operating under that premise, is that we're using the COG to represent us, even though at that time, we could have formed our own metropolitan planning organization, and dealt with our own funding issues separately from the rest of the region. So they continue to grandfather us, and what that means effectively is that it doesn't really matter who else you're clustered with, because they're going to give the designee that vote or that seat. So if you'll remember back a couple years ago when we were dealing with this issue, normally the cluster cities all vote for their representative, but in the case of Denton and Louisville and McKinney, those cities have a seat on the RTC board because they are the old MPO/urbanized areas. So it may make some sense for you to be clustered with other cities that are more closely located to you. We've often wondered, well, why, nothing against Roanoke and Trophy Club, but they're a little bit distant from us, and their transportation needs are a little bit different than ours. Whereas Highland Village or like Dallas or Corinth might have more in common with us. But the COG's job is to try to divide these cities up as best they can, and sometimes they just have to make choices that don't necessarily fit in terms of local needs. But regardless of how they do it, as it stands today, you would still have that vote. And you have that seat. Now, they could always change that rule. And so I think we'll have to watch the bylaw committee pretty closely and see how that turns out. That's the way it is today.
I think they're getting some pressure from some
Probably.
surrounding city mayors that didn't, they thought it would be a rotating thing, and,
They wanted it to be a rotating.
well, they thought it would be, and they signed a MOU, and everybody did but us, and, because we knew that wasn't the case, and so now they're, Commissioner Eads represents those, entities, and so I think he's getting a lot of flack from those.
He is, when I talked to him about the other day, he is mainly looking at it from the RTC side. And they do this every time there's a new census coming out, at least an estimated census, the RTC. And what happens, the room can't get any bigger that the meetings are in. So there's only gonna be 43 seats, just like there was 10 years ago. And we're adding a few 100,000 people a year. So, and every time this happens, some people lose because other people, not that they lost population, but other ones gain. So the ones who gain are happy about it, but the ones who are losing, think their power is being diminished, even though they would just have the same representation anybody else would. So,
I was chastised pretty heavily by surrounding mayors at the last time when we decided to keep Councilman Durham on as our deal.
But as it turned
Wanted
out,
it to be.
that would have happened anyhow. I mean, it's COGS rule.
I understand it.
yeah.
They didn't think that's the way it ought to be.
And they were mistaken in one of them, that they want to do the rotating, but since I've been on this since '07, I think the 2 years we've had the same exact group every time. It just changes depending on where the population growth is and where they can get
how
as
the
close to an
county
equal
needs to
number.
balance it all out.
They're trying to balance it out to an equal number. Because we were with Highland Village, Little
Right.
Elm,
Right.
and others, but they're not going.
Thanks, Rick.
Item 11.
So how do we get back to, the city council, excuse me, the city manager mentioned that our interests may be more in line with, as far as transportation and these other issues, with some of the cities that we're not in that are not in our group, but it seems like previously, we may have been in that group.
We could have, but then Little Elm was in it too, and they're, on the other side of.
You can certainly
Westway.
suggest as a council that they do their best to keep certain cities that we think share those
Have a
interests.
common interest.
Yeah, they have those common interests in our cluster, which, I mean, you probably need to tell us which ones those are, that you think are most important to or significant. Now, those cities might not necessarily agree with you, or they might not have a seat on the board per se. They'll have
And there may not be
representation.
anything that they could put another city with that would work. And I think they maybe just been looking at Denton County possibly on the South Lake, Roanoke and Trophy Club.
Well, I'd like to see at least some thought and consideration given to this matter as far as potentially what we can or cannot do.
And I think if you just give us some general direction that you'd like the COG and RTC to look at, trying to get a little bit closer proximity, that would probably be sufficient.
All right.
Well, it might be the proximity of the infrastructures that serve those
Right.
municipalities.
I-35,
Instead of-
121,
Right.
1171,
Like South Lake is more 114, 35, where we're more 121, 35E type deal.
Is that what you need? Okay,
Sufficient.
thank you.
Item 11.
And I don't know if Jason is here yet.
Just
He's
making it the local.
Yeah, he's traveling, so in the event that he's not here when you come to this item, I guess we can go to the executive session and come back or reschedule it, whichever your preference is.
Okay,
Probably go to executive session, and if he's still not here, table.
we'll cross that when we get there.
Because if he's coming from the north,
Right.
it's a mess.
Right.
The highway's a parking lot when I came in.
It was both ways for those.
Kind of love the rain. And then it'll be like that because of the sunshine.
Yes, same thing. Or a football game. or no
Okay.
football game.
Anything else, council? Julie,
Yes.
Counselor? Hello? Okay, we're adjourned. o'clock, we do have a quorum. We'll call the city council meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the invocation given by Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Gilmore. And then we will do both the pledges, both American and Texas flags, by Scout Pack 233 Webelos, Howling Wolves Patrol. If you will, stand, please.
Please join me in a moment of silence. Amen.
Scout Troop, would y'all like to come down, please? Once again, this is Pack 233 Webelos, the Howling Wolves Patrol. And sir, if you would introduce yourself and then introduce each one of your young gentlemen there, I'd appreciate that.
And I'm Mark Garner. This is Ashton Hill.
Joshua Garner.
Caleb Stevens. Colin Knowles.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming tonight. We appreciate you coming and leading us, all right?
Everyone's having uniform, please place your right hand over your heart. Salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of
America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And salute.
On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Let's give these young gentlemen a fine round of applause. Thank you very much.
These are new. Yeah.
They got a sign up there that says direct to microphone. That's because I always pull it over to the side so I can talk and I forget to put it back. So they ask people to do that for me. Where is our representative? Oh, you're right there in front of him. Come on up here, please, sir. Salvation Army representative. Come on up here, please, sir. I'll let you say a few words here in a minute. We're here having a little special opening tonight because this is the season, probably the biggest time of the year for Salvation Army as far as is this time of year from now through the first year, through the first year.
Through Christmas Eve.
Through Christmas Eve. And I'm sure you'll see them throughout the city. We have a lot of businesses here in the community that get involved with it. I know our local clubs get involved with helping raise money for them. And so we look forward to the wonderful work you do. And I can confess Salvation Army is one of the best social service programs in the country. And for dollar, they probably do more, or I won't say more, I'll say as much as any other organization out there. So we want to thank you for the work that you do and for all the volunteers that you have out there. We want to please ask you to thank them also. With that, I want to read this proclamation. It's whereas the Salvation Army was founded in Great Britain in 1865 and in Texas in 1889. And whereas Salvation Army provides humanitarian relief and spiritual guidance to people. And whereas the Salvation Army is an international movement and an evangelical part of the Universal Christian Church, its message is based on the Bible Its ministry is motivated by the love of God. Its mission is to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. Its mission is to meet the human needs in His name without discrimination. And whereas the lack of adequate income prevents many families in Louisville from providing Christmas gifts for their children, the Salvation Army in Louisville provides Christmas assistance to individuals and families. And whereas 25 red kettles will be located at grocery and retail stores, including the Vista Ridge Mall and other locations in southern Denton County. Now therefore, I, Dean Euchert, Mayor of the City of Louisville, by virtue of the authority invested in me by the laws of Louisville, Texas, do hereby proclaim November 16, 2013 as the official kickoff for the Salvation Army of Louisville Red Kettle Campaign. What I'm going to do is keep out there and say a few words about the Salvation Army, and then I'm going to invite everyone that's coming up with me to whether if they'd like to kick off this Red Kettle Campaign for us. Is that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, sir. You want to come up? You want to get a photo?
Yeah, probably.
Thank
Go
you.
right ahead, step up there.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and distinguished city council. Sheila Skipsey, the director of Louisville Service Center, we've been here now, this is our 4th year. Unfortunately, she had gotten ill, so she had asked me to come in her stead, and I cannot speak as eloquently as Sheila does, but we've been so gracious to be here each year the last 4 years in front of the city council. The amount of help and assistance that we get out of the residents through the Kettle program for our center, the need is still there. It helps the residents of the city. Right now, I know that our Angel Tree program, what the mayor was saying at the Toys at Christmas, last year we had over 600 families. This year we are now over 700 families. So the need is still there and it's quite strong. I'm wearing my emergency services disaster shirt tonight because not only do we help out people in need, but if God forbid something hits this area, you can count on the Salvation Army being there on site, probably one of the first ones there to render assistance to each and every one in this city, no matter what their social economic background is. And we'll always be there as long as the people of this great city still help us out with the Kettle program and offer their assistance so our center can still operate. So on behalf of Sheila Skipsey, who I tried to get in everything she told me to get in, Mr. Mayor. But here is your bell this year again, and you may start us off.
I will start us off, and I ask everyone who would like to come down and contribute to the Red Kettle Campaign 2013.
Do I need a dog? I already borrowed one.
I did at Walmart.
He has done it before. He said he worked at Walmart doing it.
Peltier, are you in the crowd tonight, sir? Come on forward, yeah.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Jeff, and yourself? For those of you who don't know, most of you probably do, this is Jeff Peltier, and Jeff has served our community well for, gosh, I don't know how many years, many, many years. Can you tell me how long in
Probably
total?
close to 12.
12 years, and he's been a member of several boards and commissions over the years, and just done a tremendous job, and I know anytime I've called upon you, or I know Mayor Karen has called me several times, you were always willing to step forward, and I know sometimes you were going through some transitions in your life.
That's right.
That made it difficult, but you were always willing to step forward and work, and I want you to know we greatly appreciate all the work that you've done, Jeff.
Thank you.
We have several plaques here. We have, I'm not going to read them, each one of them, but I will tell you each one of them is. First off, it says this is certified that Jeff Peltier has served as a member of the Charter Review Committee from May 2009 to July 2011 as acknowledgement of your interest in effort for the city government and in appreciation of your sincere service to the city of Louisville. This certificate of merit is hereby awarded to Mr. Jeff Peltier. We have that for, like I said, the Charter Review Committee. We also have the Corridor Plan Advisory Committee from 2010 to 2013. We also have the Louisville Parks and Library Development Corporation from 2006 to 2013. We also had the Tax Increment Zone Number 2 Board of Directors, 2009 to 2013. And we had the, on the Park Board from 2002 to 2013. He was also Vice Chairman in 2003, 2004, and Chairman in 2007. You would think Jeff's a lot older than he is, all those boards and commissions served. He started at a very early age.
That's right.
We appreciate it. Jeff, would you like to say anything?
Not necessarily. I relocated to Trophy Club, which is the only reason I'm not still serving in the city of Louisville. We were here in we bought a lot in 97, built in 98, loved the city, and up until May of this year, like the mayor said, got involved, served. I strongly recommend anybody that's out there with an interest to get involved and serve. And were it not for the fact that I'm now a resident of Trophy Club, I'd be collecting more plaques and certificates, I guess.
Well, it's certainly their game, and we'll certainly miss you, but you know, we love to have you come back in.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
John Green. Out here. There he is. Come on down, John, please. Once again, we have another fine young gentleman that has dedicated a good portion of his life here, a number of years here for the city of Louisville, and stepped forward and always volunteered to do things, been on numerous boards, and served on our city council for a number of years and done a great job. We appreciate all the work and effort that you've done, and that your wife has also done for our city. And we appreciate that and all the stuff you continue to do. I know you're still involved with a lot of different organizations. We appreciate that, John. Thank you very much for all that you've done and all that you'll continue to do here in our community, sir.
It's a pleasure. Love Louisville.
I know you do. We appreciate you. You bet. And then once again, this certifies that John Green has served as a member of the Louisville Parks and Library Development Corporation from October 2011 till June 2013. His acknowledgement of our point of interest of the effect of the city government and in appreciation of our poor servant, of our proud service to the city of Louisville. This certificate of merit is hereby awarded to Mr. John Garena. Also, we have a certificate of merit here for his crime control and prevention district from December 2011 to May of 2013, and for the Louisville Local Government Corporation from 2011 to 2013. Once again, John, thank you so much for the work you've done. We look forward to the work you're going to continue to do with it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Let's get a picture. We'll spread those out a little bit here. Get a picture. Thank you very much. I was going to ask you, was there any other board or commission member here that you maybe check in? We want to make sure you use your plaque. Okay, just want to make sure you need it. Next item on the agenda is the visitor citizen forum. At this time, any person with business before the council not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the council. No formal action can be taken on these items at this meeting. I did not have any speaker cards filled out for visitor citizen forum. Next item is consent agenda. All the following items on the consent agenda are considered to be self-explanatory by the council and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests. For a citizen to request removal of an item, a speaker card must be filled out and submitted to the city secretary. I did not have any cards filled out and no one asked anything to be removed. Councilman Ferguson.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Have a motion by Councilman Ferguson to approve consent agenda.
Second.
A second by Councilman Vaughn. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item 9, consideration of a variance to the Louisville City Code, Section 9.5-207B, sign requirements, lighting, for 2 wall signs located at 475 Elm Street is requested by Accent Graphics representing the property owner, the Medical Center of Louisville. The Medical Center of Louisville has several buildings on its campus. Wall signs for the primary and secondary entrances are being requested for the south-facing side of the Rehabilitation Institute, which is located approximately 200 feet west of Edna Street. The Medical Center of Louisville is proposing to utilize internally illuminated Blue Cross and Running Man logos on the wall sign as part of a wayfinding system. The OTDRC recommended, which is Old Town Design Review Committee, recommended denial of the illuminated portions of the requested signs by a vote of 3-1 at their October 14, 2000 meeting. Recommendation is that council consider the variances as set forth in the caption above. Councilman, first, before we start, I have 2 people here who'd like to speak. We have Stephen Morris. Or both of you come up at the same time? Is Gary, one of you, Gary and okay, and then we have Stephen Morris and Gary Collins. If you'd both just give your name and address for the records, please.
My name is Steve Morris. I'm at 523 East Rock Island Road, Grand Prairie, Texas.
I'm Gary Collins. I'm at 128 Henrietta Street, Louisville.
Okay.
And I represent Medical Center of Louisville on this request for the variance. And I have a picture, and I don't know if y'all have this or if y'all have seen this. I have some copies I can bring up to you and kind of
That's fine.
pass around.
We've got them, but if you want to.
You have them?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, first off, if you look at the picture in the bottom, it shows the picture of the new logo for the hospital, and then also the Running Man. And we went before the city last year and presented this, and they approved these 2 signs to be facelit. And when the hospital wanted to change the name to show Elm Street up there, the city realized that they had permitted those, and they said those were permitted in error, and they wanted us to not light them up anymore. So, I mean, they've been up there for over a year. They've been lit up for over a year, and no one's complained. And in the meantime, the population that uses that entry is elderly population. They they look at the symbol more than they do the name, even though it shows Elm Street. We're trying to get that a little bigger. But with a change in daylight saving time and things like that, it's still real important for them to be able to see those symbols to know which building they need to go to. And so, even though we're asking for a variance, it's not for something new, it's for something that's been there for over a year. We just request that the city council would approve this, because we're gonna change, where it says Medical Center of Louisville, we're gonna change that to Elm Street, which they've been used to for years and years before it was changed last year. And then we're gonna put Medical Center of Louisville on the side of the building with the Running Man logo, because that's where the senior health is located. And I appreciate any questions or anything that you may have in regards to this.
Council, do anybody have any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you,
you. Councilman Vaughn.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the variance as stated. The reason that I support this is because of the clientele that use this facility, and it is a single building in a larger complex, and it would support the elderly and those with poorer vision in finding where they need to be. Even though I understand the Old Town Design Review Committee being not in support of it, in my opinion, the Medical Center of Louisville is not in the heart of Old Town and sits on the fringe. And in my view, I support this variance.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Vaughn, a second by Councilman Tierney. Is there any further discussion?
Just a couple of comments on this. I spoke with Economic Director Reineke about this to understand it better, and I'm going to add to what Councilman Vaughn said. This particular building is not actually on Main Street. It's off of Main Street and does not face Main Street. It faces south. So as far as being visible from that area that we consider to be the primary part of Old Town, and as he pointed out, being in a set of buildings that are really on the periphery of Old Town, while I would normally side with Old Town Design Review, in this instance, I have to agree that I think this is the right thing to do at this location, with the added note that if it were facing Main Street, I might feel differently. If it were closer to the heart of Old Town, I might feel differently. But I think there's a lot of mitigating factors here that just make this make sense. So,
any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10 is consideration of the cluster grouping. And thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Once again, we appreciate you. Thank you, sir. Item 10 is consideration of the cluster grouping for the Regional Transportation Council, RTC, requested by Councilman Durham. The Regional Transportation Council of the North Central Texas Council of Governments allocates seats on the council by region and city population. Louisville is currently in a region along with the Colony, Flower Mound, Roanoke, and Trophy Club. At the May 21, 2013 City Council meeting, City Council nominated Councilman Durham to continue serving as the RTC representative and the Colony Councilman Perry Schrag to serve as the alternate. The RTC Bylaws Revision Subcommittee is currently reviewing its bylaws and operating procedures. As a part of the review, the subcommittee is examining the composition of its cluster groups. Before the subcommittee gets too far into the process and considers options to modify the cluster groups, they are seeking confirmation for each of the cities that they are satisfied with their current grouping. RTC has requested confirmation by November 12, 2013. Recommendation is that council provide staff with direction regarding the cluster groups. Councilman Durham, I'll start it off with you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. This is looked at by Bylaws Committee every 2 to 3 years, depending on when population changes come in. As stated in the backup there are representatives for cities right now and groups of cities. There are 43 total spots on this committee, and it is not, they're not adding any more members of the committee. And with the population increases, they have to adjust the cities and the populations, changes that are occurring to try to equalize every one of the seats to approximately represent the same number of people. So what they're asking for us is asking if we have any problem with the committee we're on right now, with the group that we're on right now, and if we did, what would we suggest there be done? There were some things said by Councilman Vaughn in workshop to direct staff to look at some kind of, Mr. Vaughn, I don't want to step on what you might say, but generally was that there would be have an interest. All the group that we're with have an interest that we're all concerned with, like I-35E, State Highway 121, and Business 121. Whereas some of the cities we're with don't have that right now. So with that, I just turn it back over to you, Mayor.
Does anyone else have any further discussion? Is that enough direction for you, staff? Mr. King?
If there's a motion along those lines, sure.
Okay.
If there's not, I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Durham, a second by Councilman Ferguson. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is he not here yet?
Board, and he should be here in the next 10 or 15 minutes.
We can probably adjourn to executive session if you want.
Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and hold off on item 11 because the gentleman presenting this has been caught in all the bad traffic this evening and is on his way here. Had to come in from Oklahoma, so we're going to go ahead and we'll do reports real quick. Nika? If you had a report that lasted 15 minutes, he'd be here, see? Chief, please give our well wishes, as I'm sure you will each and every day. Let him know we're thinking of him. Our prayers are with him. Linda? Chief? Carol? Donna? Brenda? It's good to see you tonight. Boy, you look so much nicer than Mr. Ferris. David, you doing all right?
Filling in.
Anything that you'd like to say, sir? All right. I'm sure Mr. Backus is taking good care of you. Mr. Backus, you have anything, sir?
No, sir.
Councilman Durham?
Nothing, Mayor.
Councilman Tierney?
No, sir.
Councilman Gilmore?
Just a quick notice, the Chamber has their 6th annual community showcase this Saturday, November 9th from 10 to 3 over at Louisville High School, the Harmon campus. So that's 1250 West Round Grove. That's down on the south side of town. It's great. You get to see a lot of the local businesses. There's a resume drop-off, a health fair, business expo, and of course the Taste of Louisville. So you get to sample some great food.
Mr. King?
No, sir.
Councilman Ferguson, I bet you got a little something, don't you?
I always have something, it seems. First of all, a reminder, tomorrow is the last day to vote for, we've got several things, school board position, the vote on retail alcohol sales in Louisville, and 9 propositions to the Texas Constitution. So encourage everybody, if you haven't already voted, get out there and vote. Second item, I did talk to Chief Tittle late last week. Sounded good. Said progress is kind of going slow, but it's going in the right direction, so that's all good news. Just keep him in your thoughts and prayers, but it was, he sounded pretty chipper, so that was good news. And then the MCL Grand, we have a stage show, Robin Hood, November 7th through 9th, presented by Prestonwood Christian Academy. We've got the Denton County Cinderella Pageant, November 10th for girls up to age 26. My daughter could have entered that, but she's not around. Visual Arts League, their Acoustic Fridays that I'm always reminding you about, every Friday night, 7 p.m., Bring your guitar, bring your lute, bring your calliope, whatever, and have a good time. Art exhibits, the cowboy culture art exhibit is still at the art gallery and will be there through November 9th. Absolutely incredible exhibit. If you haven't seen it, unbelievable what Mr. Harmon has put together and collected over the years, and you really ought to make the effort to get by there. Gallery is, so this is the last week. Gallery is open Tuesday through Saturday, 1 to 5, and also open whenever there are public performances at the MCL. And then kind of in conjunction with that, Cowboy Up, which is an exhibit by the local Visual Arts League, is along the North Corridor Gallery, I got it right the first time. Again, through the end of this week, same hours. And then worth noting, the Nutcracker, performed by Lake City's Ballet, will be, this year it's going to be at Marcus High School because of some planning requirements with auditoriums and so forth. November 30th at 7:30 p.m., December 1st at 2 p.m. Outstanding performance, well worth seeing. I encourage everybody to turn out for that. And, sir, that's all I have.
Okay. Councilman Vaughn.
Yes, Mayor, just a couple of items in regards to Keep Louisville Beautiful. I'd just like to say that on November 16th, the Trinity Trash Bash is going to take place, and that's where they clean up the waterways. And they're going to gather at Lake Park from 8 until 11. And also, Keep Louisville Beautiful has partnered with the Studio Movie Grill, and you can buy tickets from Keep Louisville Beautiful for $9.50, and 50% of the proceeds go to Keep Louisville Beautiful. And the tickets are good until December 31st. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilor? Julie? Thank you. Thank you for getting early voting done so well. Everybody, I heard there was no complaints or anything, so thank you for that. And officer, once again, we want to thank you for being here tonight and thank you for what you do each and every day, and also your fellow team members. If you'll pass that on, we appreciate them also. Thank you, sir. And I just want to thank everybody in the city for doing such a great job during the Halloween celebration. Didn't hear any problems with anything. We had a great year. People in our community really reached out to one another, and I thought that was great and tremendous. You heard some horror stories around some places, but here in our community, everything went wonderful, so I'm really proud of that. Once again, I want to thank the PAC 233 Webelos for Howling Wolves Patrol for leading us our pledges today. And once again, I want to thank our board and commission members, those that were here tonight, appreciate the work you do, and those that couldn't attend tonight, we certainly do appreciate all the work and effort that you do for our city. With that, in accordance with Texas Government Code Subchapter D, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, pending litigation, City of Louisville versus City of Farmers Branch and Camelot Landfill TXLP, calls number 412-CV-00782, United States District Court for the Eastern District of Texas, Sherman Division, and Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, application to obtain municipal solid waste permit amendment, permit number 1312B. In Section 551.072, real estate property acquisition, and Section 551.087, economic development deliberation regarding economic development negotiations, will now convene into closed session. Okay, council, we're going to convene back into regular session for item 11. Item 11 is presentation of the progress of Louisville Retail Merchandising Plan by Catalyst Commercial. The City Council approved a professional service agreement with Catalyst Commercial to conduct a retail merchandising study on 3 sectors in Louisville. This is a progress report on the Old Town sector based on the research and analysis conducted so far by the consultants. You want to give your name and address for the record, please, sir, and then go right ahead.
Jason Claunch, and I am at 5307 East Mockingbird Lane, Dallas, Texas, 75206.
Okay, go right ahead, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. I think, as Nick had probably addressed, this is a timely presentation. We've got ICSC and several conferences coming up, and so I thought it'd be good to give you an update on where we're at. Essentially, we're at final draft stage, and we've gone through a couple of iterations with NECA, but I thought it'd be good to give the council an update on where we are prior to us essentially taking pieces of this and marketing it at various conferences. So without further ado, I really wanted to just get through a top-line summary of some of the high-level statistics that we've come up with and just walk you through some of our findings. Essentially, just looking at the overall statistics for downtown Louisville, there's about 7,500 people within a 1-mile radius. Within that, there's about 50,000 median income or 62,000 average household income. The race and ethnicity pretty much is in line with most of Dallas-Fort Worth, although the Hispanics population is increasing if you look at the historical levels. And then we also looked at just essentially the overall purchasing power, which is the median income times the population base, to start to get just an indexed or a statistic of the purchasing power within the immediate downtown core. Go ahead. But as part of our process, we also wanted to look at the distribution of customer samples. So we've got a unique process where we actually interviewed some businesses. The majority of these customers were collected using LPR or license plate readers, and we could look at the distribution of customers in relationship to downtown. We work in a lot of downtowns, and downtowns are fairly unique because even though these samples were collected at primarily retail businesses, that was our intent. Right now, the destination of downtown could be from workforce and obviously visitors. So this information, can certainly stretch the traditional trade area. But essentially, this is the overall primary trade area that we came up with. In order to sort of refine this down and get a neighborhood perspective, depending on what operator we might be recruiting, we might use samples that were, say, later than 6 p.m. to try to mitigate some of the evening samples and only display those that maybe run a non-visitor economy. As part of our process, we did an initial SWOT analysis just to kind of frame in the overall strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Essentially, downtowns are in vogue, and you've got some authentic, substantial framework. Obviously, being anchored at one end by the DCTA will certainly provide stability and added benefit. You guys have some phenomenal programming that brings a unique visitor economy to downtown that I think would probably stand against most downtowns in all of North Texas. And then I think the positioning between I-35 and 121 carries a significant amount of traffic, and that linkage is certainly a huge advantage because I think you've got a significant traffic flow that you may not normally have without that 121 business connection. And so, and then just looking at the overall inventory, we inventoried all the properties, and the framework here is significant because not only you have opportunities for adaptive reuse, but you also have greenfield sites that are available, so that can cater to a wide audience. Some of the opportunities is certainly ability to partner on some of these pieces. Certainly have the linkage to TOD increasing that programming so that you can get the connectivity and activation between the TOD and existing downtown. I think the process and the progress that you're doing and continue the momentum with the branding and the wayfinding and all the current public investment certainly can leverage additional economic opportunities. Some of the findings, just some of the weaknesses, fragmented ownership, and sometimes some of the pieces, it's tough to assemble large tracts unless you're going to buy and redevelop property. The distance between the TOD and the existing core is certainly fairly wide. It'll take some opportunity to start to fill in those blanks and activate that before it, in my mind, becomes walkable and measuring it in traditional distances. And essentially, looking at adaptive reuse, that can be, somewhat expensive. Some of the threats that we see in downtown, I think that this could be mitigated, but if you look at the current demographic characteristics, they're shifting. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you've got a significant velocity of affluency moving in. We're seeing some of that low to moderate income sort of shifting around, specifically on the south end, and sort of pulls that purchasing power down. And so I think overall, a program and a plan in place to build in some additional residential, primarily between the TOD and the existing downtown framework, would certainly make sense, because that would be a great use to connect those dots. And then some of the issues might be just the cost, the overall cost of redeveloping some of these properties, depending on what the basis is, may be difficult to do. We also looked at the overall, yes, sir. Please. You can't see the screen at all?
Yeah, and that's why I went back there.
Correct.
You can't see it, and Tim's not able to get it up right now.
Well, there's the map with a bunch of dots, and, that's not going to do you any good.
Well,
so.
but the slides, like the SWOT analysis is not in there.
Yeah, it's not in the backup.
And the map's not in there. I mean, there's stuff that's not in there, so.
Yeah, that's why I went back there to tell Tim that it wasn't pulling up the right image.
Okay,
We
sorry.
apologize for the technical, it's not your fault, we apologize for our technical difficulties here.
Wasn't aware you weren't tracking, so.
Right.
You want to go down and yell the down there?
I am.
I'll just turn this way.
I think I have some Advil in my bag if any of you need it after the crick in your neck, so I apologize. Our original process, we used, to define the trade area, we used census tracts, and it's very difficult to compare polygons to polygons. So as part of this process, we also looked at just the drive time, overall drive time distance for the downtown and where it might pull. And so our findings were that the downtown primary core customer, people are willing to drive about 19 minutes to come to downtown currently. Again, that may be the visitor economy and the workforce, in addition to people going to the current retail establishments. But within that whole core district, we've got about 236,000 people. So it's a significant population base that we can pull from. And then within that, the median income jumps up significantly to about 83,000 people. So again, once you look at where that overall relationship and that pool comes from, we've got a pretty good sizable net to work from of that core population base. Go ahead. And then another, just sort of for comparison purposes, we also looked at just the overall distance of where that primary trade area currently falls, and 65% of the population base that we measured in downtown is coming from within a 9-mile ring. So just to give you some distance, and then as we release some of the other projects and studies, you can start to see some of the relationships between these districts and one another. Go ahead.
Wait, let me ask you something. You said the 9-mile ring. Was most of that directed north, and was there much of it from the east? I guess that's my question.
Can you roll back to the previous map? And I apologize, it may be difficult to see. Actually, the majority of the population was west and south on the other side of I-35. And then we were actually pulling quite a bit of population even from Capel. which is, not too surprising, but that certainly brings the overall purchasing power up. The challenge, which, sort of this regional geography is your frequency of some of those guests may drop off the further out that you get. And we evaluated all that within, certain distance and rings and looked at purchasing powers as we looked at the merchandising strategy. But when you get these large regional geographies, and part of this reason is because where it's situated and the fact that it's fairly the linkages between I-35 and 121, it's very easy and convenient to come downtown and shop and grab a sandwich or a cup of coffee, and then maybe head off to Frisco or wherever. So I don't think downtown today is necessarily purely destination based. Besides folks that may be going to a few restaurants and the coffee shops today, but we'll mitigate that as part of our overall implementation strategy. Go ahead. We spent a lot of time looking at specific core properties as it relates to sort of a implementation strategy and sort of a phasing strategy. We looked at about 45 properties that we felt like could be opportunistic, but as our first strategy, we think certainly the properties around Mill Street in Maine and Mill Street in Center, the property essentially Church that's adjacent to City Hall here. And essentially that's the core assets. We did drop traffic counts, and these are where the majority of the traffic increase. It's certainly where most of the synergy is with Town Hall and the central point for most of the visitor economy. And so we really spent a lot of time evaluating different sort of business plans and opportunities and develop pro formas for some of these core properties. And as we have game plans for these and vet them out, then we'll continue kind of working down that list as additional catalytic sites. But these are the initial 4 properties that we really focused on that we felt like, in our minds, was probably low-hanging fruit. The framework was there, the physical constraints made sense, and it was really essentially within this core downtown district. Go ahead. We also spent a lot of time looking at overall merchandising and the characteristics of downtown comparative to a number of brands. We finished our analytics and modulation and went through about 981 brands. I think the biggest constraint is right now when you look at the immediate population, we've got low to moderate income, and we've got a limited amount of population base within that initial core. Even though the trade area is fairly wide, I think our core downtown district has limited purchasing power, and so we spent a lot of time comparing that across sectors, across different brands, and I actually have ranked all 981 brands to figure out how each one of those brands correlate to the downtown statistics. So this is not comprehensive, but we took certain brands, high-end restaurant, sort of a white tablecloth restaurants that were categorized in Dallas-Fort Worth. And what we found is that most of those within a 1-mile population, and we compared it just to the population and income, the purchasing power around most of those units was about $1.2 billion. And if you look at the population and median income and the purchasing power of Louisville, we've got about 369 million. So we're about 25% of the characteristics of most of those high-end, what we would consider, tablecloths, average tickets of $50 or greater. There are a couple anomalies. The Kirby's in South Lake and the Bob's in Grapevine, both of those in that immediate core actually have very similar characteristics, but both of those locations are super regional. And there's already a lot of gravity established restaurants, in essence, to set up the core. And if we've done some trade area work on behalf of the airport, and we've studied those brands, and those have a extremely super regional pull. And so we know that they're drawn from a much bigger audience. But I think this is a great way to just sort of compare current characteristics with some of these brands.
When you looked at those, especially over in the Grapevine area, did you see any effects from their tourism over there because of the large
The core of Grapevine obviously has a significant amount of tourism, and there is a huge direct correlation between the tourism and the performance. Obviously, we do a lot of research and study on commuter traffic, and we actually looked at the relationship between all those passerbys on 114 and the relationship about we actually studied the frequency and did some primary research on the frequency of those commuters and their willingness, or how many of them were willing to stop, and found some interesting statistics. And then the fact that it got significant daytime population. We also censused all the daytime population in there and actually inventoried those and surveyed the daytime population in and around the airport to understand their behavior and their frequencies at some of those restaurants. And so if you sort of aggregate all those phenomenon, certainly Grapevine's got a significant amount of gravity or pull from multiple different characteristics. Even though the population around the immediate core is fairly light, the pull in the residential base north and east and west of it, is fairly broad. So that's where it's getting most of its current base. And I think the opportunity for downtown Louisville is very similar, but there's just a process of doing the infill residential and building into the brands and building in that purchasing power, and that could either be done through a number of people or affluency, essentially a combination of both, until you get up to correlating to some of those brands. Next slide. We also spent, quite a bit of time just correlating other concepts, and this is another example. But Mi Casina was one of those that, traditionally suburban, interstate locations. You do see them around workforce area, but the Mi Casina, most of the Mi Casinas had purchasing power in an immediate area around the 1 mile area of over $4 billion around those versus the 369,000 or 359,000 of Louisville. So again, I think it's just core population density, and we'll look at this at a number of different angles. So we're just sort of isolating two variables and looking at those. But when we actually run our analytics, we run about 6 different variables, including race and population and income, to sort of correlate and modulate those brands. But I think these are just, population and income are always the dominant variables, dominant weighted variables for the majority of 90% of the brands. I think it's just an interesting exercise, looking at where downtown sits. We've been very successful in stimulating other districts and really looking at opportunity to cater to the next generation customer. And we think certainly catering to the existing core population, but when you're looking at, at sort of a differentiated strategy, we think catering to the new millennial population is certainly where we've seen most of the progress, and so their characteristics and their desires are different. So the new millennials are looking for quality ingredients, more choices and customization. They're also looking for authentic brands that aren't, they're not the same brands that or chain restaurants. Are looking for more of these sort of niche, public or communal space is important where, people can hang out. Next slide, I'll go through a little bit of the characteristics. This, and you can't see the slide, so I'll flip it. The target audience would be, much more diverse, younger. The challenge with this is their purchasing power is certainly less as well. They have less disposable income, but they spend a lot more money at restaurants and shopping, specifically on technology as well. Next slide. And so these are example of those niche concepts. Fuzzy taco, torchy taco, mellow mushroom. If you haven't been to downtown or Preston Center in Dallas, the line around Hop Daddy is about 30 minutes, which is actually pretty short. The line around Austin is about 45 minutes, and then obviously concepts like Twisted Root and so on and so forth. But although they're very unique, they all carry that consistent theme. You can go in and order sort of specialized products, and they give almost a theme and or experience associated with it. And normally you'll see spaces with wireless and hangout spots. Catering to that next generation. Go ahead. And so with that population, and this is why we think restaurants are probably the fastest way to cater and catalyze the development. That population eats out. 41% eat out 2 more times a week. Over half of them consider place and alcohol a priority. So it can certainly pick up that average ticket. And over 20% are hanging out not only with family but friends. As it relates to placemaking, the residential as well as part of our analysis, and I think that's important to infill. We've been studying the overall capacity or demand of residential, specifically even urban residential or multifamily, and we're seeing overall across DFW about a 9% increase. So as former owners were owning, we're seeing that translate into rental across the board, but there's certainly a higher percentage of the new millennials, and essentially they're also looking for the same thing that looking at restaurants. They don't want as large floor plans, so you're seeing smaller square footages, but they're being amenitized with more common areas and communal areas and small pocket parks integrated into that as essentially the extension of their living rooms. And the office space overall is certainly shrinking. We're seeing a shift from the suburban office market back into these urban markets, closer to home. And the workspaces are a lot more open plan, and certainly from adapted reuse, there's probably some office use that would make sense. And in our analysis, we certainly saw some capacity for some smaller scale office that could work downtown as well. Go ahead, next slide. In addition, as you're looking at programming some of these, we put together several pro formas just looking at different scenarios. In this scenario, we looked at just plugging in land costs versus reduced cost or sponsorship, soft cost, integrating site work, building, shell. And essentially, when you look at that private-public component, essentially, we've recognized with the city participation, at least in initial catalyst projects, not only can you lower the overall rent threshold, but through a public-private partnership, you can also lower the gross sales hurdle, in essence, to mitigate risk for those few initial catalyst projects. We don't see this going forward on all projects, but we certainly would see this maybe in the first 2 or 3 or 4 projects that come to market in order to stimulate those and reduce the rent. Until you have concepts, multiple concepts proven, you've got a few strong case studies, but until you have 4 or 5 strong case studies here, then I would think that there's probably going to be some level of public participation. So with that, I'll be more than happy to answer questions. We've got a very deep document that's fairly significant that we'll walk through the trade area and traffic counts and patterns and the merchandising strategy, but I thought it would be timely to give you just a quick update of where we are in this process.
Does council have any questions or anything right now?
No, sir, not at this time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
One thing I was wondering about on the public-private participation, when you get that core in there, what is the backlash that you encounter from other businesses wanting to come in and not receiving that partnership?
You have to look at really each business and brand on its own merit. And we look at every project and say, is that project catalytic? That's truly really the first test or hurdle. Has that brand demonstrated that it can pull a greater gravity than what we already currently have? And can it also stimulate and encourage other brands and other developments? So it's not just additive, but it's truly catalytic. We also look at the level of investment and the internal rate of return and the net present value of that investment comparative to its return. So we would certainly want to make sure that it hurdles and it that the city would have a favorable payback through that process. Also, we would encourage that any participation from the city would be fixed. That there's a very finite level of the amount of participation, and that it's finite. that it has a time horizon and a sunset clause. But I don't think, I think in most of the projects in the areas that we work on, there are both incentives available for existing operators, especially downtown, facade and grant improvements, other public improvements. We're working in Oklahoma City where, complete streets and sidewalks and parks and other amenities to help drive businesses that current operators would take advantage of. And then there's also sort of de novo or new growth projects where the city might sponsor land or provide some sort of incentive or abatement and inducement. It really depends on the market and the capacity. And in our mind, we want to find as many of the tenants that where the market's there, and you don't need to bridge that gap. But I think until there's 4 or 5 strong case studies and you create that gravity, that address, I think there's going to be a small gap in the market that needs to be achieved. So.
In your studies and stuff you did, because you mentioned early on about needing more residence areas down here, residential areas and stuff. And it seems to be it's kind of a catch-22, which chicken or the egg, which one comes first to bring the other one in? Is it the people that bring in the restaurants, or do you get the core restaurant thing to bring the people? Is there anything in any of your studies that you've done that prove out that if you get a core, and I'm not talking about large, but if you start developing a little core of restaurant, that does actually increase the spendable or household income within a certain area?
I think the restaurants, in my mind, are fairly low-hanging fruit, but because I think their ability to pull or gravitate a larger audience is their small footprints, and they can make the biggest impact. And they provide a certain level of activity and energy to downtown and amenity both to the workforce, your existing workforce and additional workforce. They can also amenitize restaurant or residential. So in my mind, I think residential can be catalytic, but I think a focus on quality infill residential projects, specifically between Mill Street and the existing TOD, would be a coterminous strategy for us, because I think it's important to continue to build that core up and also get that 24/7 market. So I don't think it's an either or, I think it's an and. But I think in my mind, restaurants are probably the lowest hanging fruit to catalyze a downtown, at least from our experience, than any other product. I mean, there's a cycle to develop residential, and that's got a longer tail on it than some of these retail projects.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have anything? All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. There's nothing to do on that, right?
No.
Okay, now, council, we're going to reconvene back into closed session. See that little sign there? Not the yawns tonight.
Why is my chair so they took your picture off. They still showing the other room?
We'll call this regular session back into order. Is the action be taken, council?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion to adjourn by Councilman Ferguson, a second by Councilman Gilmore. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.